My name's Connor Willumsen, and I'm the author of this book, Bradley of Him, which is a comic book or graphic novel or whatever you want to call it. It came out 2 years ago in English, published by Koyama Press. And the reason I'm alone in this room talking to myself is to promote the Spanish edition of this book, which is now available from Alpha Decay. The reason I'm doing that is because I want people to buy the book, because I get a very small amount of money for each person that does so. And then if they do buy it and people like it, it's good for my fragile self-esteem. I'm feeling confident enough to do this because the book's been out for 2 years, came out in English. People walk up to me and they say, I liked the book you made. And I say, thank you. And I look at them and I wonder if they're being polite, if they're telling the truth. But after about 2 years, I'm reasonably confident people seem to like it, so I don't mind shilling this to you now. First, what I'm going to do is describe a little bit about what the book's about. Then I'm going to sort of show a little bit of how it was made, some of the original artwork, that kind of thing, blah, blah, blah. And hopefully that's enough for you to put your money down, because that's really all I want. After that, if you have negative opinions and you want to share them on the internet or with your friend, that's great. It's all good publicity. I just want that hard-earned money spent in the first place, and that's all I ask. So I'll get started. This book begins in a large, luxurious hotel casino in Las Vegas, and it features a protagonist who's disguised head to toe in luxurious activewear, and he's undergoing some kind of troubled introspection and possible identity crisis. And his way of resolving this is to embark on a run, like an athletic run or jog, outward through the city of Las Vegas and eastward into the desert. And this run is sort of an indefinite, perpetual nature that seems to have no end. And this run serves as a sort of odyssey in which he encounters people and a crisis of the concept of his own persona and identity. And as the book unfolds, this crisis is shared by both the character himself and the reader, as both tend to question the difference between their own concept of self and the idea of character or performance, and also the idea of celebrity and how a larger media culture, capitalist culture, can play into the fantasies of who we are, and how we use other people, often famous people, to play out those fantasies and create a sort of identification fiction through which we can live our own problems. And this book itself is sort of an identification fiction. So it's kind of hard to explain. There's a lot of things in it that I don't want to spoil. And quite frankly, beyond all of the more pretentious things I was just saying, people who love hot celebrity gossip, I think, will get a lot out of this book. I'd like to answer the question of why this story exists as a comic book as opposed to a screenplay or a work of prose or theater piece, aside from the reason that no one would be willing to pay me to do any of those things, is that because for me the comics medium is unique in its, amongst storytelling mediums, but more specifically visual storytelling mediums, in its ability to be expansive and without limits in terms of depiction. It offers a more varied approach than prose and a less limited approach than film. And for me, the reason I'm even working in this format today is because through all my life, observing artists and becoming interested in visual literacy and storytelling, I've noticed that some of the most lucid and intelligent and funny and creative artists on the planet are cartoonists. So that's what I'm trying to aspire to by working in this medium. So as much as I'm motivated by the nature of the story and the plot and what I'm trying to tell in those terms, I am motivated by what this unique medium has to offer and the things that are available to me to explore that just feel too limited in other mediums. So one of the big inspirations for this book and how it looks is an exploration of the history of visual perspective and how we interpret our visual field, how we interpret space and scale. And hopefully you can see in the book what I'm trying to do is manipulate with scale and space in a way that feels less reliant on our standards of visual depiction in terms of things looking correct or things looking like a photo or scale being correct, and try to come up with an approach that is more accurate to how we experience reality, which is sort of a collage-based approach where our memories and sensations all kind of intermingle into an amorphous experiential scroll that we kind of flow through, where elements of different importance can take on different scale in a relative way, how spaces can feel larger or smaller in a way that's not dependent on their actual size, or the way time can be perceived to slow down or speed up, and how all of these things just have a very fluid and loose language and interchange in our own perceptive field. So rather than being reliant on the lens and the camera and conventional perspective and diorama boxes and just what we think of when we think of a realistic image or a realistic depiction, for example, how a movie or documentary and photos and video are thought to be realistic, I'm working on the premise that actually our experiential perspective of the world and the subjectivity of that is maybe a more honest depiction of how we as human beings share experiences and how stories are then told based on those experiences. I'd like to talk a bit about how the pages are actually made. Each page in this book is composed of a set of layers of tracing paper with pencil drawings on them. And the reason I chose to do that is so that while working, I could overlap the images and overlap the pages and sort of see multiple layers at once without resorting to the use of a computer or a light box. And this sort of shifting and overlapping helped to perpetuate a more borderless, ethereal quality that is embodied in the narrative itself, and allow me to feel flexible, to improvise and make changes as I go along, and just to keep the drawing experience and composition experience as pleasurable and intuitive as possible. This is some work I've done in the past, and I think it's going to give you some sense of what I'm trying to get at with this book. This is Antigone, which came out about 4 years ago. This was my first sort of proper comic book. More recently, it's been adapted into a mixed reality theatrical performance that premiered at the 2020 Sundance Film Festival. This is a comic I made for the Kramer's Ergot anthology in 2019. As you can see, I'm doing a similar thing here as I am in the Bradley book, in which I'm trying to explore space and perspective to make for a unique reading experience. This is a recent science fiction story called My Grandma Was My Bounty, and here I'm exploring a more traditional, straightforward, and dense storytelling style.